Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Amanda.
And we're your hosts.
We're a traveling couple and digital nomads taking you on our adventures as we explore locations, destinations, and careers.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the World Wanderers podcast. We're excited that you're joining us for today's episode of the show because today's episode is a good one. We are super stoked to be joined by Bill Hillman. Bill is an author, a journalist, and a bull runner. He's been running with the bulls in Spain for 16 years and has survived 3 gorings. His writing has appeared in numerous publications, including NPR, Vice, Daily Mail, etc., etc. And he's also just recently released a brand new book called The Pueblos, My Quest to Run 101 Bull Runs in the Small Towns of Spain.
And we had a really awesome conversation with Bill, finding out about kind of what drew him to Spain at the very start, and then what kind of drew him to go from someone who experienced the Festival San Fermin in Pamplona to really wanting to dive deep and explore all of this tradition and go as far as running with the bulls more than 100 times. So it's a fascinating conversation. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Without any further ado, let's dive into the interview with Bill.
Welcome to the podcast today, Bill. We're really excited to have you here with us today.
Thanks so much, Amanda. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're stoked to dive in with you. You have one of the most unique stories that I've read about so far. So I think this is going to be a pretty interesting conversation.
Thanks so much.
And so first question for you is, where in the world are you joining us from today?
I'm in New Orleans. I'm down here working on a PhD at the University of Louisiana in Lafayette. And I'm lucky enough to be able to live here in New Orleans. It's a lifelong dream to be here. So it's been great.
Amazing. And do you have a place that you call home outside of New Orleans?
I'm originally from Chicago, but I go back there a lot. But that's where I'm from.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, we have I think New Orleans would be one of the best cities to study. And we have actually one friend in particular who is like, I wanted to go to law school in New Orleans. I have no idea if there even was a good law school. I just wanted to be a student in New Orleans. But anyways, we did our first trip together, Amanda and I, in 2011. And we had never really, other than kind of family vacations, never really been outside. And that was right after we finished university. And one of the very first things we did on that very first trip was go to Pamplona and go to San Fermin and kind of see the running of the bulls there. And it was just something that was, when we were thinking of what would be really cool to go see and do, that was something that kind of pulled us as just some interesting event. And so I wanted to kind of ask you, was there something that kind of drew you to those types of celebrations, or what kind of drew you to Spain?
It all goes back to reading the Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises when I was 19 and 20. I was a freshman in college. And a sophomore maybe. And I sat down and read that book, and it was the first book I ever read for enjoyment. It was the first book I didn't, and I never really finished the book when I was in my high school literature classes. I just would read whatever I had to sort of pass the class. And I finally sat down and read Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises, and was just shocked by the whole experience of reading it. I read it in one sitting in 4 hours, and just blown away by it, captivated, wanted to go and experience it. It just so happened that ESPN was doing a series on the bull run at that time. And so I kind of got hit with a 1-2 punch. It was The Sun Also Rises and then ESPN's coverage of the run. And I couldn't believe that it's still going on. I mean, that was the big shocker, was is this really still happening? This feels like something from another world. And so that's what made me want to go.
And what year was that in, Bill?
I read The Sun Also Rises around 2001 or 2002 maybe. And then I was my first year in Pamplona, I went in 2005.
Okay, amazing. And what was that experience like after having this, this book that you read and then kind of this dream of going over there? What was it like to actually get there and be I'm here for this festival?
It was incredible. I mean, I I think I was around 23 or so. And I was, I was broke. The reason I went out there originally was I happened to be friends with Irvin Welsh, the author of Trainspotting. And he had demanded that I go to his wedding. He was living in Chicago. He was getting married to a girl from the Chicago area, and he was getting married in Dublin. So he demanded that I go to his wedding. Like, and when you're a writer and your idol tells you to do something, you do it. So I mustered up the money and got out there to Dublin right before Fiesta for his wedding, which was incredible. And then by the time I got to San Fermin, I was broke. I didn't realize how expensive Europe was. And so I was sleeping in the street and trying to figure it out, and got pickpocketed for the last bit of money I had. And it was total chaos. But at the same time, I really I fell in love with the city. I was in awe of the fiesta. I got there in the afternoon and got immersed directly into the drinking in the streets and the partying. I fell in love about 30 times with the local Spanish women, the Pamplonicas. And some of them took me out drinking. I, of course, blew it because I'm a goofball at 23. And I ended up completely intoxicated. Tried to sleep in a tree because I thought I was going to get pickpocketed again. I had a little bit of something left, and ended up trying to get to the course, passing out drunk next to the course. So I wake up and I run to the barricades, hearing the animals coming up the street. I'm near town hall, and I try to climb over the barricades. And when I get my hands on the top of the barricades, a female police officer who's inside the barricades in between those, there's like a double barricade and everybody in between is like medics and police officers and journalists. But I really fell into the fiesta at first, and I was totally lost and totally unable to like get it together enough to run.
And so did you kind of then start like thinking of like, okay, I need to like tone it down and find a way to get into this? Or what kind of happened from there?
From there, I was broke. I tried to go, I made a police report. And I was laying in Plaza de Castillo when these like three Spanish, two guys and a girl started just chatting nonsense. And I know enough Spanish because I worked with Mexican construction workers my whole life. I know enough Spanish to know like crude language, and I could pick up on what they were talking about. And I started laughing at the things they were saying. And then they started talking to me, and they had a little bit of English and my little bit of Spanish. We ended up becoming friends. And they took me out drinking again all night. And I kind of didn't know what was happening. They were going to bring me to Madrid to stay with them because I had nowhere to stay and no money for food. And I ended up waking up in a car at around like maybe 8 a.m, driving through the Pyrenees. And I'm like having this like out of body experience. Like, where am I? What happened? How am I in this car? And it's like the most beautiful mountain range I've ever been in my life. And there's beautiful weather. The sun is just like coming through the clouds. And it's just amazing, epic. But they were driving me to San Sebastian, and they're going to drive me to Madrid to stay with them until my flight left. And I kind of sobered up on the beach in San Sebastian and realized, okay, look, I'm not going to Madrid. I'm going to get my parents to wire me some money. I'm going back to Pamplona. I'm going to run. And so that happened. I went back. I didn't drink at all. And I just started looking for places to sleep. I ended up sleeping at the foot of the Hemingway statue. And it's funny, the police would let me sleep there for some reason. They had like mercy on me. There was a nice little like stone slope that makes like a pretty comfortable little bed at the foot of the statue. And so in the morning, actually, the police officers woke me up and said, it's time to run. And I said, okay. And I get up, I start walking around. I ended up in the wrong part of the course because I still have no idea what I'm doing. I'm a 23-year-old kid that has no idea what's going on. And what happened, I didn't know that the police clear the first half of the course so that people who don't know what they're doing get kicked off. And then there's just less people who don't know what they're doing on the course. And so, of course, I get pushed off by the police along with another like 400 people. And I'm frantic now. I can't believe I failed for the second time to run. I'm totally freaking out. I'm begging people to help me. People are pointing in each direction. I end up running and finding. I get to town hall, and I can see people packed in at town hall. And I'm thinking, okay, this has got to be where we're supposed to stand. So people are trying to sneak in, and the police are beating them up and arresting them. And so I'm watching this happen. And when the police go to grab somebody and beat them up and throw them off the course, I jump in and I sneak behind the police and I get on the course. And now I'm for sure I'm going to run. I'm so grateful, but I'm also like terrified because like everyone's freaking out and we're all stuffed in like sardines in this small area. And I kind of had this notion I wanted to run the curve, which is the big bend in the course. And so I go down there and I'm kind of standing there thinking about it. And at some point, this young newlywed couple from California like befriend me and decide that I know what I'm doing and decide they're going to follow me. And I'm like, okay, like I don't really know. This is my first time. I don't know what I'm doing. And so they're like kind of following me around. And I'm like, all right. Then the bulls come and they're flying up to the curve, and they're I can hear the rumble in the street. Everyone's flying past me, running. I'm like 20 yards away from the curve up Estafeta Street, and all of a sudden I see this black bull come flying through the curve, and he had just bucked somebody with his head, and the guy was flying above the bull's forehead. And it looked like his face, it looked like he was smiling, but he was probably screaming. And at the time kind of froze on that moment. And I'm like, what did you get yourself into? The bulls all crash. The guy falls. Everybody crashes into the wall. And I'm watching this in horror. And I don't know what to do. I'm kind of like petrified. And all of a sudden I see out of the corner of my eye, I see something big coming towards me. And I look, and there's a giant steer has hugged the inside of the curve and is away from the pack and is coming straight for me. And I just had enough time to kind of jump out of the way, and I jump out of the way and I kind of push against his shoulder. And I don't know how his legs didn't tangle with mine, but somehow I got out away from him. But the couple that had decided to follow me is like right next to me. The steer literally just gobbles them up with his hooves, tramples them completely. They both scream and are just like completely trampled. And I like stop to try to help them. And the herd kind of passes, and I go back, and there's one bull that's separated from the pack that's still there, and it looked right at me, and it looked like it was running directly towards me, and I just took off running, and the bull luckily passed me, and that was it. That was my first run.
Wow, that's a wild story. Do you know, was that couple from California okay?
I never saw him again. You know how Fiesta is. You never really see you see somebody, you never see him again.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm
sure they're happy and have had children and everything's going swimmingly for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we can hope at least. Yeah, that's just crazy to think about. Like, so we didn't actually run with the bulls. I think at one point during one of the nights, like middle of the night after we've been drinking, Ryan was like, I'm going to run in the morning. I was like, you better stop drinking and maybe get some sleep if you think you want to do that. But there was never really a consideration for me. I'm not a super fast runner. I feel like a bull is very big compared to me. So I was like, I'll just watch from the sidelines. But was there a point like as that was happening where you're like, I need to get out of this? Or is it like, it's too late, you just got to keep running?
You know, the good thing is there was no barricades anywhere near me, or I might have ran to the barricade and tried to climb through. You know, I was on Estafeta where there was nothing, no real escape. So, yeah, you know, I don't know if I wanted out. I didn't know really how to get out. I was you feel really trapped when you're in there. So it's like, just survive, run, do something, you know, get away from the animal, you know. That's kind of like the instinct that popped in my head. But yeah, no, it's a really crazy experience. I still can't believe that it exists. Like sometimes I'm just baffled by it. Like, this thing is real. You know, I live my normal life, and then I think like, oh, I have this other life in Spain where these things are normal day experiences. You know, and the two worlds just do not like rhyme at all.
Yeah, for sure. I remember thinking that as well, just being, even with just like the fiesta part of it, of like you're walking around and you've got your own like drinks and you can just walk into a bar with your own drinks and it's just like pure anarchy on the street. But just for anyone I'm sure everyone's familiar with the running of the bulls, just at least from like seeing clips of seeing people running away from bulls. But can you kind of set the whole stage for like what's going on with the festival, and kind of, like you mentioned at some points, like the police do try to keep like people who look like they don't know what they're doing away. But for those who do know what they're doing, they're trying to run the whole course, right? And get from the start all the way to the bull ring at the end. Can you kind of just overview the whole event for people?
So this is a 9-day festival. Well, it's like 8.5 technically. And it's always ranked in the top 5 greatest festivals of the world, along with Carnival in Rio, Oktoberfest, Mardi Gras. These really, truly great and massive and ancient sort of festivals that have been going on for a long, long time. It's about 1 million people descend on this town of 300,000, and they cycle through. So there's throughout Fiesta, there's maybe 5 or 6 million people come through and leave. But the population of the city balloons up to about 1 million and stays there for 8 days. It's a religious festival. It's called San Fermines, the fiesta of the patron saint of the festival there in Pamplona. He's a martyred saint. He was killed by the Romans. He was beheaded or drugged through the street by horses or bulls. There's a lot of debate that goes on about exactly how he died at the hands of the Romans, but he became a saint. So this is a deeply religious festival. The people of Pamplona and Navarra, they are intensely religious throughout this period of 8.5 days. They go and visit the church. There's a massive San Fermin statue inside of it. There's parades. It's a deeply religious cultural festival, along with traditional dancing, traditional music. These parades of the gigantes. It's massively deep, ancient, sort of beautiful cultural festival that's sort of celebrating their Basque heritage as well as their Navarran heritage, which is a sort of a complicated blending of these two cultures. So that's what's going on. And then throughout that day, there's a cycle of partying, and then a cycle of really intense morning encierros. Encierros is the name of bull runs. And these bull runs are also extremely religious. There's a prayer sang by the runners 3 times before the bull run commences. A prayer sang to San Fermin. They put a little idol inside of a nook in the wall near at the beginning of the chorus, and they sing prayers to him for protection. It's super religious and beautiful. All the real Spanish runners and the real Navarran runners, they all fall into a deep sense of prayerful sort of reverence before the run starts. These animals, these bulls, there's been a relationship between these animals and the people of Spain, of the peninsula, for almost as long as there's been people in existing in the peninsula itself. So we're talking million years of this relationship between bull and man that's been happening here. So there's a lot of Christianizing of this act, which the act is actually more of a pagan act. It has its roots deeply in more of a bull worship culture that goes back, 1 million years, where these people sort of lived through and by the bulls, right? The same way that the Native Americans lived through buffalo. That's what these people, the people of the peninsula, lived. This is how they lived for eons. So there's this wedding of religions, right? There's this deep pagan thing happening, and then there's this Christian Catholic thing that's been overlaid and intertwined inside of it. So, like I said, so then at 8 a.m., the rocket goes off. Bulls are at the pens at the edge of town. They're released from that pen. They run around a half a mile course that winds through the city. Most of it is uphill, and they run into in the Plaza de Toros, the bull ring, and then they run to the corrals that are inside the back of the bull ring. after they run across the ring itself. So that's this sort of the thing that's happening. Now with the runners themselves, about 50% of them are first-time tourists, like I was my first year. And then the other 50% are serious runners who've been running for generations, who have grown up looking up to the runners, who have grown up in this bull culture, right? From all over Spain, well, from the Madrid area, from the Valladolid area, from places like Cuellar, from places all around Navarra, like Tafalla, Tudela. Everyone migrates. Everyone comes into Pamplona to run because Pamplona is like the World Series of bull running. But more than that, because it's religious as well, right? It's not a sport. But if you can imagine a World Series where baseball isn't a sport, it's a religious act, that's what you'd be getting when you look at San Fermin, and the bull runs in San Fermin. So these runners, they all have tramos, which are their section, their path that they run. The sections are roughly go at San Domingo. That's the first section. The bulls are so fast at San Domingo, you're lucky to run with them for more than 30 or 40 yards. As you get up towards the top of San Domingo, you get into the town hall section. And that section, the bulls are starting to slow down a little and wind right a little. And so you're able to you can run with them a little bit longer. You run from town hall into places like Mercaderes and even into the curve sometimes. So the street goes, it sort of swings left, and then it goes into a hard right turn. That's where I ran my first run, was the curve. So that hard banking turn, a lot of times the bulls will fall there. They've fallen less and less because they put an anti-slip on the ground, but there's a big sort of pause and slide and sort of tough turn there, where the runners can kind of get in and get into the mix and run the bulls up Estafeta Street. And so Estafeta is like a long straightaway. It has a little bit of a bend to it, but it's pretty much a long straightaway. It's sort of the iconic street of the Encierro. It's where there's these balconies that are rising up like 5 and 6 stories on each side of the street. It's gorgeous street. I mean, just beautiful. And when the bulls are running up it just looks incredibly spectacular. In that stretch, you can start to run longer distances with the bulls because they're slowing down a lot because they're getting tired. These bulls, Pamplona likes big things, so they end up bulking these bulls up a lot. They feed them a special diet of oats to try to get them to gain a good 50, 100 kilograms. So these bulls are massive, beautiful, but they're a little bit, they get a little tired towards the end usually. Not always. I mean, they've been getting faster and faster because they're training them in recent years. But in terms of the past 20 years of runs, the bulls really start to slow down on Estafeta. And so a lot of guys can run like, a good 100 yards with the bulls in the beginning stretch of Estafeta. And then when you get to towards the end of it, the second half of Estafeta, you can see guys that can actually run all the way from halfway up Estafeta all the way into the ring. And there's only a handful of truly great, incredible runners that can do that. There's David Rodriguez from Madrid, a police officer from Madrid, incredible, genius, brilliant, god of bull running over the past like 25 years, 30 years. He's able to sometimes run the whole from middle Estafeta all the way into the ring. The new great runner is a guy from just outside Pamplona and Huarte named Aitor Estrega. That's a Basque name. He's a Navarran person. He's able to also right now, he's been running from about halfway up Estafeta all the way into the ring on the horns. Incredible feat. He's sort of the new great runner of the Encierro and all of Spain. There's other greats. I mean, there's a lot of greats that you can mention in terms of the history of the run, but those are two of the guys that can run probably the longest distances. So then the run goes up into Telefonica section. It widens out. Then it narrows as it goes into the ring in what's called the Callejon, and it goes through a tunnel that goes under the bleachers and into the ring. And that's a really spectacular place to run because the ring is always full, about nearly 20,000 people, somewhere around 10 to 20,000 people every morning. So when you run into the ring, with bulls at your back, you are basically scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl. That's the kind of response the crowd gives you when you run into the ring. It can be, 15, 20,000 people on their feet, screaming, cheering, exploding with joy as you lead the bulls into the ring. So that kind of experience, you can understand how addictive that can be. Not everybody gets to score a touchdown at the Super Bowl, and just show up and take a shot at it, So it's a fantastic sort of fiesta, and all day long they're playing the replays on national Spanish TV. Every TV station is playing the replay. So if you have a good run, if you're a Naito Aristregui or a David Rodriguez, you're basically, every time you look at a TV, you're seeing yourself or your friend leading a bull up the street, and that is just, it's hard to explain it. The type of joy and excitement that surrounds the run, and that's sort of it. That's sort of what fiesta is like. It also has various different phases in the day. It has massive a European championship fireworks show every night. The national like a European champion is named for fireworks every year in Pamplona. It's fantastic. It's unbelievable, really, the festival. It's something I love a lot.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all of that, Bill. And yeah, I think we've only been once, but can certainly echo just that it's a really incredible festival and really unique too. And I think it's interesting to hear a bit more about, the meaning and religious symbology that it has for the local people. Because I think as a tourist, you go there and it's like, you get your big bottles of sangria and you get your costumes or whatever you want. And then you're just on the street partying, and it's easy to disconnect from the fact that there's kind of a greater significance to a lot of the local people there. And I think we set ourselves up pretty close to the arena so that we could watch people kind of run in and then get into the arena to see all of the chaos happening after. And I think that was definitely a highlight for both of us, was watching, the runners come in with the bulls and just everything that happened once the actual arena was full of, all these humans and all these bulls and just all of this chaos going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. It's really incredible. I mean, that's the thing, is a lot of people, they're attracted to the festival. They come, and I think it's great. I mean, the people of Navarre and Pamplona, they think it's great as well. And they celebrate that welcome people to the fiesta. But yeah, I mean, it does seem like chaos. But the more I've run and observed the NCRO, the bull run, and, sort of studied it and experienced it, you start to see that actually there's a lot of, it can be like ballet, it can be so poetic and so beautiful. These runs that these Spanish runners have, and the kind of journeys that they go on. So here's one thing, is that people don't understand that there are good runs, successful runs, and unsuccessful runs, right? An unsuccessful run, obviously, you get gored or horribly hurt, or you just pushed against the wall on the side of the street, right? That's an unsuccessful run. But a successful run is where you actually join the herd and become one with the herd. And if you're a truly great runner, you're able to run in front of the face or the horns of the bull. And when that happens, when you get in front of a bull, what happens is that the bulls are genuine. When they're at full run, full sprint, they're almost always in herd mode. Which is head down, galloping, looking for something to follow, right? And sometimes they're in front and they don't have anything to follow. So they're just leading the pack. Now, when you get in front of a bull that's in that mode, it's going to basically be looking at your legs as you run. And if it feels like you know where you're going and what you're doing, it's going to lock on to you and follow you. And when that happens, I'm telling you, it is one of the most surreal, intense experiences you'll ever have. It feels like the weight of this 2,000-pound bull is on you. And it's just, you feel one with the animal. It's a really spiritual, intense experience. And so once you get to that place, if you can hold that position for a long period of time, let's say 50 yards, you've had an incredible run. Right. You've led the bull for 50 yards, You're going to be in all the highlight reels. You're going to be in photos, incredible photos. You've completely succeeded. Now, if you're able to hold that position for like 300 yards, like David Rodriguez, Artur Stregi, or guys like Juan Pedro Lecona, who are all friends of mine and great people, that's when you realize that you've done something that's incredible, right? That's only been done maybe 100 times in the history of the bull run in Pamplona, right? So when you're able to do that even once or a couple times during Fiesta, you've really sort of set your place in history. And you can never take that away, and those are the kind of moments where all the runners will find you to congratulate you. All the great runners will find you to congratulate you, right? It's one of those magic connections, right? That someone had with an animal that we're all trying to do, right? Every morning, thousands of people are trying to do that, and only one or two maybe are able to, right? And not 300 yards, maybe no one gets 300 yards for half the Fiesta, right? Maybe only, these things only happen, they happen rarely, right? So that's what's sort of happening, right? I mean, amongst the core group of runners, right? That core group of maybe 2,000 runners that know what they're doing and are trying to pursue a great run.
Okay, yeah, that detail is awesome. And for those guys who are, take it very seriously, what do they think about kind of people who are showing up and like, more of that like tourist who like has had a few drinks and is like, I'm going to do this too? What are their thoughts on that type of participation?
Like I said, from what I experienced talking to my friends from Pamplona and from Navarra, they are at once proud that their fiesta is so special that it brings people from all over the world, from China, from Russia, from South America, from the United States. They're incredibly proud of that because they know that their fiesta is great. It's one of the greatest parties on earth. But at the same time, a lot of my friends have been injured because the problem is that there's not a lot of good information out there about Fiesta and about the run. That mixed with anyone who shows up and gets in the right place can run is a dangerous situation every time. And we've seen some really dangerous situations unfold, like the Monton, the big pileup of bodies that happened in 2013 that nearly killed a kid named John Geronimo Mendoza. He was basically brought back to life, put on life support. He'd been crushed at the bottom of the Monton. Mainly, that situation was caused by a mistake at the gate, but also it was all first-time runners that got sandwiched in and stuck in a big pileup. That was all tourists and first-time local Spanish runners too. I mean, John Geronimo Mendoza, I think it was his first run. He was 19. Everybody kind of starts with no knowledge. That's sort of like the difficult part of the run is that everyone starts with no knowledge. Almost everyone. I mean, some people are raised up running since they were 10, 12 years old. Those people are blessed with knowledge and skill when they first go to San Fermin. But it's not just the foreign tourists, but it's the Spanish nationals that are also have no knowledge. Some of them have no knowledge and they show up and try to run. And so that Monton, we were so lucky that it was the Fuente Yumbro, and that ranch, the Fuente Yumbro, basically just took mercy on the pile. Otherwise, if it was another ranch like the Mura or the Sabaragago or the Hendia, these other ranches that are known for being more ferocious, we would have probably lost some people that day, and we would have had massive gorings everywhere. So we were just lucky to not lose any lives that day. But that situation was caused by a bunch of tourists not knowing what was going on. But again, it's difficult. Everybody has that first run and they don't know what's going on. So you can't really judge these people. They wanted to be part of it the same way you wanted to be part of it. Maybe a experienced Spanish runner can look down on them, but they also had their first run too. So it's difficult to sort of judge and be angry at these first time tourists when there was a time when you were a first timer too. So it's complicated. It's difficult. And the run is all about struggle, and so nowadays, guys like Aitor Stregi, they don't just have to run better than all the other bull runners that day. They also have to navigate 2,000 tourists that are in their way. So you can just imagine how great Aitor Stregi is, that he's able to navigate the 2,000 tourists and be better than all the other best runners in Spain in order to do what he does. So in a weird way, the tourists also set the bar higher for like the difficulty raises because of them. And there's a challenge in that. And I think guys like Aitor Stregi embrace that challenge.
Yeah, that's so interesting to hear. And I'm curious, I know you've done this a couple times and you've also been gored. Can you tell us a little bit about those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I've been running since 2005. So I've run 16 years. I've pretty much run full fiestas most of those years. So in Pamplona, I've run somewhere around 80 runs. I really don't. I stopped counting runs a
few more than a couple then. My bad.
Yeah, no, it's okay. No, a lot of people don't know that's one of the things that I like. That was part of my project here, was to try to explain to people that don't know anything about the culture, like how vast, nuanced, complicated, and massive this culture is in Spain. And the numbers, even though the numbers in the end, spoiler alert, the number doesn't matter in this book, even though it's on the cover, it really doesn't matter. It only matters in terms of displaying how complicated and massive and popular and nuanced this culture is in Spain. So I set out in 2016 to run 101 bull runs all across the small towns of Spain. And, I didn't know how many I could run. I knew of about 40 runs, like 40 individual runs, like, in about 10 towns. And so I knew I could get a number that was pretty high. I didn't know if I could hit 101 because I just didn't have enough knowledge of the Pueblos, of the little towns. What I did have was Juan Pedro Lecona, Aitor Stregi, Diego Velasco from Cuellar, various people, incredible resources that I could go to and ask, where should I go? And that's what in the end saved the day for me and got me up to this number. These friends of mine in Spain, they bent over backwards. They booked me rooms. They got me drivers. They got me hooked in with younger runners that were all going. They orchestrated a situation where I could run an incredible amount of runs. This is all just out of the kindness of their heart, by the way. And just generosity. And they helped me every step of the way. I zigzagged the country for 90 days. I ran in Valladolid. I ran in, Cuellar. I ran in Medina del Campo. I ran in Madrid. I ran in San Sebastian de los Reyes. I ran almost every bull run in Navarra, from Fauces to Falla to Tudela to towns that I can't even remember the names of because they're so small. I literally, one day I was driving home after running like 3 or 4 encierros. I was tired. I was beat up. My foot was messed up. I was trying to drive home, and I'm about 20 minutes from Pamplona, driving through these side roads, and I get stopped by a barricade that they have set up on the main route. And there's a barricade there, and I stop and I say, "Oh my God, this is a bull run, isn't it?" I look, I see people climbing through the barricades. I see young kids getting excited with newspapers in their hands, rolled up, and I say, "Okay." I park, I get out, I climb into the barricades, and I run bulls for about an hour with these kids. I never found out what the name of that town was. That's how complicated and vast and incredible the bull culture is in Spain and in Navarra, especially. One night I ran, I think it was 27 bull runs in one night in Valladolid. In about 6 different towns, from about 9 p.m. until about 4 a.m. I zigzagged that region like a crazy person. and I was bumping into people that I saw in one town or the other. It was unbelievable. And that's what it's like in the bull culture in August, especially in September, in Spain. It is incredible how many bull runs there are. Like, I could say there's at least 1,000 bull runs every year in Spain, and it may be like 5,000. I really don't know. And that's one of the things that I love about Spain is every time I'm probably in the English as an English, language journalist, I'm probably the most, I have the most expertise and knowledge about this culture. But the great thing about that is that every time I kind of beat my chest on what I know, I find out that I don't know anything. There's way more to it than I thought. And I'm back just baffled by it and learning and trying to find out more stuff about it. And that's the one thing that I love about this culture, that I've never sort of satiated my curiosity. I'm always curious, and I'm always learning new things, and I'm always finding people that have something to teach me. And that's been a wonderful journey for me. And that's really what this book is about sort of exploring your curiosity for a foreign land, a foreign people, a foreign culture. And this is my passion.
Yeah, I feel like we've got so many more questions we could ask. I guess one that I'll ask, so the audience. So obviously Pamplona is the one that's like famous around the world. But if anyone was going to Spain in the summer and was interested in going and checking out some of these smaller festivals, what would be ones that would kind of come to mind?
The ones I recommend, it's kind of like the rough order I recommend bull runs in. It would be Pamplona. Then I'll probably say, if you're a serious runner and want like a Pamplona like Encierro, I would say Sanse. But if you're just interested in the culture and witnessing and experiencing it, I would say Cuellar. Because Cuellar is a very rural town. They release the bulls from the pens about 15 kilometers from town. They release them into the fields. You can go out there and watch it happen. They release them into a bunch of horsemen. The horsemen guide the bulls the 15 kilometers to town. You can watch the animals moving. If you have a car, or you can park in certain areas and watch. It's unbelievable. Like, I'm talking 500 horsemen, a massive pack of bulls and steers, just heading towards town, and sometimes fighting with each other and trying to fight with the horsemen. The horsemen are luring them to get back together. Sometimes they get separated. I'm talking extremely spectacular imagery for bulls. For example, here's my favorite story about Cuellar. I was hanging out with my friend Diego and his girlfriend, his fiance Natalia, and they said, "Hey, Bill, come watch the bulls, the release in the morning with us." I said, "Okay, let's go." So we watched the bulls get released. We jumped in a car and we drove to a bridge. It's another big point to watch from. And we were there. The bulls beat us there because of traffic. There was too many cars. I'm talking, there's 20, 30,000 people trying to watch these bulls. And we end up parking on the side of the street, getting out and running towards this massive dust cloud that's surrounding the bulls and horsemen. And you can't even see them. And so we run under this bridge, and we run into the cloud of dust that you can't see more than 2-3 feet into. And we can hear, we don't know where they are. We're worried that they've passed. So that's why we went so aggressively running in. Well, we ran too far into the dust cloud. This is by mistake because we were too excited. And suddenly we stopped running, and we listen, and we can hear the hooves of the bull walking across the road that we're standing on. And it is way too close. And we hear a snort, and we hear these little clicking sounds that the bulls are making, their vocalizations, that they're talking to each other. And the dust starts to dissipate near us. And about 6 feet ahead of us, we realize there is a massive Spanish fighting bull walking slowly, and he had just stopped. And the bull's eye, I'm telling you, 6 feet away from us, that bull could kill us in a heartbeat. And we just freeze because we know movement is a trigger for a fight instinct on them. So we freeze, and that bull, his eye is looking right at us, and there's nothing to protect us between us and them. And there, and he's looking at us, and he knows, he's telling us that he knows he sees us. He's making it clear he knows we're there. And he's sitting there, we're frozen. We're thinking, if this bull attacks us, we're gonna have to save Nathalia's life. And we might get gored in the process of that, maybe killed. And we're freezing. And suddenly the crowd, the dust is dissipating more, and we can see the whole herd is right there. There's another bull 2 feet away from that bull. There's another bull behind that. There's a steer. There's a horseman trotting through. And the whole herd and all the horsemen start to come into view. And this bull is still kind of looking at us. And he sort of snorts, and a big glob of snot just like shoots out of his nose and hits the road. And for some reason, he decides that we're not a threat, but that he's going to have mercy on us. And he just keeps walking. And his hooves are just clapping the pavement like it was like a dinosaur was walking right beside us. And finally, the whole herd kind of passed away, and we were safe. And, Natalia sort of jumped into Diego's arms, and they hugged each other and they kissed. And it was just one of the most beautiful things I've ever been around. These two people who love their culture, who love bulls. And I just so happened to be with them in this moment of like extreme danger, but extreme beauty. The dust cloud was just lit golden by the sun, by the rising sun, and there's this bull just materializes like straight out of a dream, straight out of some like a cloud. Like a god just materialized in front of us. And that image for me was just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in the culture of Spain, of bulls in Spain. And that's why I recommend Cuellar. It's more than just the encierro there. It's just a whole morning, 2-hour morning of bulls in the fields and in the streets. It's spectacular. But if you're a real runner, you really want to get good at running, you want to have great runs, Sanse is probably the second from Pamplona. It's a little bit cleaner of a run. It's outside of Madrid. They're going to be possibly having the run this year on August 25th. I'm trying to go, waiting on confirmation. And that run is like a machine. It's so awesome. And the runners are so great. From Sanse, guys like David Rodriguez and Jose Manuel, and these guys that I really look up to, like Pablo Bolos, the new great Sanse runner. These guys that I really respect, they all run there, and it's a fantastic, excellent run with less tourists than Pamplona, but it's got a Pamplona feel to it in terms of its like intensity and speed, and this sort of like bulls in the street, sort of. Running at high speed, like in Pamplona.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for all that information. And like Ryan said, I feel like we could just hear your stories all day long, but we'll wrap up here. I know you have a book you have a couple books, actually, one that's recently out. So if people want to hear more stories, of course, your book is a great place to go. Can you tell people, what it's called or what they're called, where they can go to find them, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so the main book I'm pushing right now is The Pueblos, My Quest to Run 101 Bull Runs in Small Towns of Spain. That just came out this past summer. Earlier this summer, in June. And it sort of follows my journey trying to run 101 bull runs. Spoiler alert, I ran way more than that. Also, it goes into the next summer in 2017 where I ended up getting gored, severely gored, and returning to run, and end up on the Today Show. They called me incredible because I came back to run. Stories went viral. It was total viral, insane mess that unfolded in 2017. And then also a really serious moment that the book kind of ends on, where one of my dear friends saved the life of another dear friend in a split-second move in the encierro. Probably one of the greatest things I've ever witnessed in my life. So that's what this book sort of takes you on that journey, those 2 summers. And you meet a great cast of characters like Tom Gowan, a Vietnam War veteran, who is also turned into one of the great American runners ever. and became a dear friend of mine throughout the course of the book. And that kind of stuff, that sort of, that's how that's what it delves into. And that's the main book I'm pushing right now. I got a few others you can find them on Google and stuff.
Amazing. Well, we'll make sure that there's links for all of that so that everyone can go check those out and just hear more of your stories, because doing more than 101 runs is just really incredible. And we can hear your passion for the bull running. So thank you so much for your time and for just sharing all of this goodness with us.
Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. And Ryan, you guys are great to talk to. And sometimes I start rambling and I can talk forever, but I really appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you want more, make sure to check out The World Wanders Insider, available on Patreon at patreon.com/theworldwanderers.
For show notes, head over to theworldwanderers.com. Find us on social media at The World Wanderers Podcast and join the private Facebook community at World Wanderers, a community for travelers.
You can always get in touch with us at info@theworldwanderers.com. And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps us find new listeners.
See you next time.